Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pickdawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shot Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Put your college basketball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most, including my daily Bank Shot best bet in college basketball, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Now, before we get into the first 5, or for the 5 games for Wednesday, want to mention I will be gone Wednesday night, for Thursday's games. The Bank Shot Breakdown will have a new face for one day only, and that's Chris Ruffalo. He's going to be taking it over for the Thursday slate, so make sure you leave some nice comments for Ruffalo. He does a great job. I think he's off to a great start in college basketball himself. So that'll be the Bank Shot Breakdown for Thursday, November 13th. Alrighty, guys, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in college basketball. First up, we've got North Florida and Tennessee. This one is 7 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network Plus. Now, North Florida, they covered the closing number against the Florida Gators in their first game and only game so far this season, 104-64. Now, we took Florida laying about 37.5 points at the opening number, and that line moved to 41.5, I believe, by the closing number. So that's how North Florida was able to grab that basically last-minute cover, because they were down by 43 points with less than 2 to go. They were able to, make it a 40-point game, but still, a 40-point loss, not a great showing from the Ospreys. And we talked about this should be one of the weaker teams in the Atlantic Sun this season. It could be the weakest team in the conference. And Tennessee on the other side, a little bit close game against Mercer in their opener, but a blowout win against Northern Kentucky last time out. I think we see a blowout win for the Volunteers again here. This one, they end up covering the spread. North Florida giving up 104 points to Florida in that game, despite the Gators just shooting 18%, 19% from three-point range, 6 of 32. You give up 104 points when the other team couldn't even hit a three. That's a big concern for me. They also only shot 64% from the free throw line. So if the Gators were able, they had 29 offensive rebounds. It was an unbelievable showing by that Gator front court. And Tennessee is right up there. They're 50th in terms of average height, so they can certainly take advantage of the opportunities on the offensive glass. Nate Ament, one of the better players, freshman players in this conference, and he had an unbelievable game against Northern Kentucky. Ended the day with 23 points, 9 of 10 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists to go with it. So a little bit of everything. I think that Tennessee picked its number in this one, scores 90-plus points, and covered the number in the end. I'm going to go with Tennessee, lay the points. Next up, we got St. Joseph's and Virginia Tech. This one is 7 p.m. Eastern on ACC Extra. A bit of a letdown spot for the Hokies here, as they had an overtime victory over Providence. A nice win there, 107-101 in their last game at the neutral site. They return home here as a pretty sizable home favorite against a solid St. Joe's team. Now, St. Joseph's not playing a tough schedule so far. Home games against Lafayette and Drexel. And honestly, you look at those games, they really just did enough to win those games. Wasn't that, overly impressed with the actual performance on the court from the Hawks in those 2 wins. But they're a fundamentally sound team, good rebounding team, especially on the offensive side. Take care of the basketball. In terms of D1 experience, they're up there, but they return also a lot of production from last year's team, which was a solid St. Joseph's team that was able to end up winning 20-plus games and 11 conference victories, a nice run in the A-10 tournament to go with it. So I think, and we haven't really seen a lot of situations where a new coach comes in like Steve Donahue and you're able to return 45% of the previous year, with the previous coach's team. So I do think that bodes well for St. Joe's as a sneaky road dog in this one, catching a good amount of points. I think this game ends up being competitive. I still don't, consider Virginia Tech one of the better teams in the ACC, probably a little bit more towards the middle of the pack, and I just wouldn't want to lay this many points with them after an overtime win like that. So give me St. Joseph's plus the points. Next up, we've got Mercyhurst and Canisius. This one is 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN+. Now, certainly on paper, not one of the marquee matchups for Thursday, but these types of games are the games that we'll talk about in the Bank Shot Breakdown throughout the season, even in conference play, as you'll find some good value in these types of matchups. I remember a couple years ago, I forget if it was 2 or 3 years ago, where Canisius was an ATS darling for us. They were a cover machine, winning a lot of games against the number. And last year, definitely not a great team. I don't think we backed them much at all, but they only won 3 games in 2024-25. This season, I do think still will be a pretty rough year for the Golden Griffins, but I don't think Mercyhurst is, just because of their win over Loyola Chicago, I don't think they're that far ahead in the projections or power ratings compared to Canisius. And honestly, this is a letdown spot. Even though they played a game after that Loyola Chicago win, it was against a subdivision team. Now you go on the road, your 3rd true road game of the season. not a lot of teams have played 3 true road games already, but Mercyhurst played a pretty brutal schedule, and you play a Canisius team that, even though I don't think they'll be great, I think they're certainly improved from last year's disaster, season, and they played some tough matchups. They played at Dayton. They definitely struggled there, but definitely improved with their last performance on the road against St. Bonaventure. It was a 19-point loss, which doesn't look great on paper, but it was a competitive game through the first 10 minutes. St. Bonaventure, really patted the lead towards the end of the first half and didn't really look back, but Canisius, 42% from three-point range. They only had 11 turnovers offensively. It really wasn't that bad of a fundamental game for Canisius. They will have to – the big concern for Canisius is on the defensive glass. They've struggled there. They gave up 20 offensive rebounds to St. Bonaventure. Dayton had 11 offensive rebounds in the first game. The thing is, though, Mercyhurst so far this year, 274th in offensive rebounding percentage. It's a small sample, but you go back to last year, 351st ranked in offensive rebounding. They were one of the worst rebounding teams in the country. So if Canisius' big weakness defensively right now is on the defensive glass and Mercyhurst can't take advantage of it, I think Canisius will be fine in the end. I think we're getting a really good price with Canisius in this one at home. I'm going to roll with the Golden Griffins. Next up, we've got UC San Diego and Fresno State. This one is 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, we talked about Canisius being a cover machine for us a couple years ago, but that was what UC San Diego was last year, as the Tritons had a great season. We backed them plenty of times early on. Towards the end of the season, maybe lost some of the value we had at the beginning of the year, but 30-5, they won the tournament in the Big West. They were a 12 seed in the Big Dance, losing by just 3 points to Michigan in that first round game. Very competitive first round game, but it was a great season, the best as a Division I program for UC San Diego. But this year, you lose your head coach. Now, it is Clint Allard was a member of the staff last year, so not necessarily a big change, but you only bring back 8.5% of last year's team, which was such a great team. This is an unknown team right now. I think that we could, it looked like a pretty good job in the offseason by Allard recruiting and transfer portal-wise, but this is still a team that I wouldn't necessarily project as high as, we see them in the KenPom ratings at 135. I think that's a little bit generous based on last year's results. We've only seen them play one Division I matchup so far this year. It's against Houston Christian. That win doesn't really tell us much. Now you're playing your first true road game against a Mountain West team that, yes, struggled in their first game of the season, losing that, or the second game of the season against USC Upstate, which we took Upstate in that game plus the points, but bounced back in a big way with a 20-point win over Long Beach State last time out. And I think Fresno will be one of the weaker teams in the Mountain West, but these Mountain West teams have done a pretty good job of bouncing back from tough losses. We saw UNLV bounce back from their upset loss to UT Martin with a big win and cover. Boise State, after losing to Hawaii Pacific, they had a blowout win over Utah Valley, and now Fresno after USC Upstate beating Long Beach State. I think they had another win in this one to cover as well. I think it's a good spot for Fresno. I'm going to take the Bulldogs. Next up, we've got North Texas and Oregon State. This one's 9:30 Eastern. It's going to be on ESPN+. I'm not in love with what I've seen from North Texas to start the year. Last game against Loyola Chicago, it was an NBA stadium at the United Center. It could be a tougher situation for your offense, a team that's already not necessarily known for its scoring abilities. Scoring 64 points in the victory, but you were up 34-20 at halftime. Loyola Chicago, it was basically a mix of good defense from UNT and bad shots by Loyola Chicago. They had open looks, both from the perimeter and the free throw line, but they weren't able to cash in on those, and ended up being that 14-point lead, which then North Texas completely got rid of in the second half. They ended up being down by 5 points at one point in that second half, and give credit to North Texas for settling down and finding a way to, when you're down by 5 and you just blew a 14-point lead, figure out a way to get back in the game, take over, and win that game at the buzzer. It was a very important win for North Texas, but it does, I mentioned this at the beginning of the season, I just don't think this is as talented of a team as we're used to seeing from the Mean Green. This is a program that's been great in the AAC in the last decade, but they didn't bring back a single player basically from last year's roster, and now in your first true road game of the season, just not a team that, in a clear letdown spot after that buzzer-beating win, I would want to back against a very well-coached team. And Wayne Tinkle, I don't think he has his best team that Oregon State's had in a while, but I think they're good enough here at home to find a way to win this game or at least cover. So I'm going to roll Oregon State in this one. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in college basketball. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can go to Pickdawgz.com. Under the Premium Picks tab, you'll find our premium selections. There's also a link in the description. And again, for Thursday's Bank Shop Breakdown, Chris Ruffalo will be taking over for the day. I'll be back Thursday night for Friday's slate. So I'll see you then. Until then, good luck. This is Ron Romanelli. Have a great day.